Hello Bishes, welcome back to another Draw With Me video. Today's Draw With Me is going to be quite different from the other ones I've done before, just mostly because I feel like I put in a lot more aesthetical effort into the other ones, and today's video is going to be more emphasizing on stuff that we often overlook, such as thumbnails and really rough sketches, because I feel like whenever we do artwork as artists, one of the appeals about art is really just making something look good, interesting, appealing, or just grabbing someone's eye. But whenever we're in the rough stages of a sketch or a thumbnail, it's not usually the type of work that grabs someone's eye, and that might usually discourage someone from really wanting to do thumbnails because it's not as appealing as the type of art that they normally like to do. But there is a very important part of doing thumbnails that I feel like needs to be discussed. But before I proceed with today's video, I would like to announce that this video is not sponsored, but will be shamelessly self-promoting my Etsy shop, where you can find in the link below, where I will be hosting a Black Friday sale and a Cyber Monday sale starting this Friday to the rest of next week. But yeah, thank you all for supporting me on this journey. If you are interested in any Bish related merch, definitely check the shop out, or if you know any loved ones who might be interested, it is definitely a good little stocking stuffer idea. Anyway, going back to the main topic of today's video, thumbnails. I feel like this is something that, I don't know if it was just me when I was younger, but I feel like I didn't really value thumbnails or really rough sketches as much back in the good old days, and that's not to say that I never did them. I did do a lot of rough thumbnails and sketches prior to creating finalized artwork, but the thing is, I never really felt proud about showcasing that stuff to a teacher or classmates, friends, or just any of you guys back in the good old DeviantArt days, just because I feel like even if I showcased a thumbnail or a really rough draft of mine, some people might not understand that it's a rough draft and just assume that this is the best that I could do, and I just did not want to have that as any possibilities of what this person might think of me. So I can say for sure that my relationship with thumbnailing and making really rough drawings and presenting them to people back then was truly rooted back to self-esteem issues. And you know, looking back, I actually wish more people emphasized the power of thumbnailing. So right now I am actually just working on some thumbnails for future potential comics, because honestly I've been super behind on having a surplus of comics to disperse over the course of a few weeks. That's normally how I like to do things, where I'll make a few number of comics and then over a course of a few weeks I'll just post them and not really have like any last minute drawing to do. But lately it's kind of been that way just because of how life has been, and if you watched my previous vlog you can probably tell why. But I want to really get back into posting more comics on Instagram again, but I know in order to keep this sustainable, I need to make a good number of comics to disperse over the course of a few weeks. So that is what I'm doing. I would normally do these type of thumbnails in my other sketchbook, but I feel like it's important to kind of talk about it in these Draw With Me's instead of just making beautiful, cute artwork all the time, and to just also, I don't know, it just gave me a reason to think of an idea for a Draw With Me that could kill two birds with one stone. So I get a Draw With Me done, and I also get some comic ideas done, and I think it would be really interesting to see the process. Speaking of the process, I kind of wish that that's something more emphasized in the art world or art community, and it definitely is to some degree, but I guess I'm just saying that the normal way that someone approaches being interested in art and then wanting to do it themselves is they look at someone's finished, beautiful piece, and then they'll try to do something to imitate that in their own way. But no one really automatically thinks about, ooh, I want to copy this person's thought process, or I want to reference this person's thumbnailing process. And I'm sure there are people out there who do, but it's just not what is the norm, I guess, because we just focus on an end product and want to replicate that in our own way. But then I feel like that's when a lot of artists will get frustrated because you're going to set expectations on yourself to try to create this really completed looking thing without a plan as to how to approach it, and then you get a roadblock with the drawing and then you decide to stop and then you never touch the drawing again and you move on to the next one. So I feel like that was kind of a problem with me too, because I had a shit ton of incomplete animations, artwork, illustrations, you name it. I just had a collection of incomplete things that I even created a gallery for in my DeviantArt and a video montage of for my YouTube back in the 2000s and teens, but you know, I privated them also. Good luck finding them. Anyway, I guess what I'm just trying to say is that I wish more artists would post works of their thought processes or their really rough sketchbook drawings, because I find that it's more interesting nowadays to see how someone thought of something or how they roughed up that idea and which boxes they crossed out or which ideas they rejected, and just seeing all of that scribbled into a layout on a page, because I don't know, there's just something now about really rough drawings and planned out doodles. I don't know, there's something about it that's more interesting to me than seeing a finalized piece of work, just because it feels a little more personal and raw. And I also feel like by sharing that type of work, you would also inspire other artists to post that type of work and share it as well, and not always create this expectation of everything you post needs to be some finished, finalized illustration with perfect lighting and perfect line work and whatnot. It's almost pretty much like today's social media dilemma, where so many people just want to post these picture perfect images of themselves, but nobody really wants to post like the work in progress photos or the ones that are really just raw photos. I'll be honest right now, but I feel like out of all of the sketchbooks I've ever done, the ones that have ever been the most functional and beneficial to me personally, I feel like were the sketchbooks where I really planned out my comic ideas or bigger project ideas, and I would do really super rough scribbly doodles just like these, because those were the sketchbooks I always found myself grabbing for again and then working in them again and always referring back to them. And there's just some really satisfying feeling. I don't know if it's just me, but I don't know. I really like going analog and having just paper materials and being like, here is my reference book that I made for myself, and just being super pretentious over paper. And I just enjoy knowing that whatever I created in this sketchbook is actually functional to me, unlike other sketchbooks that I've done before where whatever I do in them is just a pretty drawing that I just drew in the moment. And there is absolutely nothing wrong with those either, because I think it is great to have sketchbooks that serve your interests and just your desire to just create something pleasing to yourself too. But I guess this is more saying for those of you who might be afraid to start thumbnailing or are afraid to show anyone your thumbnails or even have a super rough scribbly sketchbook. I think that having something like this is actually going to help you way more than you think it will. So these are comic ideas that I've pretty much had on a list in my phone for a while, but I never got to bring them to life. So I was like, hey, I'm gonna use this layout in my sketchbook to just pump out 4 of them. And they're really quick to do too. So that's the thing that's really satisfying in my opinion, is especially if you're a comic artist or someone that does some sort of sequential art, doing thumbnails is really helpful, because I feel like once you get the idea out of your brain and onto that paper, you'll just be so thankful that you just don't really have to think about how it will play out anymore. Like anything after this point on is kind of massaging things to make your story more clear, but that's not going to be as much brain power as taking a blank sheet of paper and playing out your idea from scratch. So I actually have some stories about what would happen if you don't thumbnail, especially if you're a storyboard artist or aspiring to be a storyboard artist or a comic artist or anything that would involve you doing a lot of drawings in some sort of sequential order. And some of the things that can happen if you don't thumbnail is that you might just get so into whatever it is that you're drawing, but then by the time you're in your 150-second drawing, your, I don't know, manager, director, boss, whoever might look at it and just be like, this idea isn't working. You have to scrap it and start it all over again. And you're just gonna be like, bitch, what? I spent so long working on this. What do you mean it can't be used? Well, that is one of the reasons why in storyboarding you have several passes of the storyboards. You always have a first rough pass, a second pass, and then a cleanup pass, where you want to just show your ideas as roughly as possible just so you get the idea out. You just want to pitch the idea and have your little ducks in a row, or however they say that line, and just present it in a very brief way so that you know that this idea can even be accepted, and then afterwards you can start tightening up on the things that do go through with whoever you're reporting to, or even if it's just you that you're reporting to, because you don't want to work on your own personal project and just spend 10 years working on one part of it only to be like, I really don't like how this is going anymore, but I spent like 5 months on it. Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to scrap it. Well, maybe if you thumbnailed it first and just did really rough, loose, quick drawings, instead of losing 5 months, you would only just lose like a week or two. Also, in no way am I saying that you have to thumbnail or you'll die, and I'm not trying to threaten anyone into thumbnailing at all. I'm just proposing reasons as to why it might be a good idea to thumbnail, and you know, if you have been trying to do things and they haven't been working for you, maybe thumbnailing is something that you can try out. There are also many cases where thumbnailing is just not necessary, and that's just for other stuff. Like if you just want to draw in your sketchbook and just draw whatever and not have to be so structural about how you're going to approach this drawing, I think that's absolutely fine. That's the point of, you know, art in the first place, is you want to make it an enjoyable experience. And sometimes to make it enjoyable for yourself, you have to thumbnail, or sometimes if you want to make it enjoyable, you don't have to thumbnail. Like, I'm just offering options out there that exist that can make the process of drawing or art more fun and easy for you. When you hear the lines that your artwork is very clean, you might associate that with positivity, just because I feel like the word clean has a lot of positive connotation attached to it. But strangely enough, throughout art school, I was trying so hard to unlearn being a clean drawer, because in high school I did a lot of clean line work for my illustrations, and I feel like that just became a habit that I had to break, especially after I discovered that I wanted to become a storyboard artist and have that as my potential future career. So I was just like, girl, you need to stop drawing clean, because it can be a little bit constricting. And I don't even think that drawing clean slowed me down. Like, yes, it does to some degree, but I felt like even though I could draw fast and draw clean simultaneously, there is something about super clean work in a first rough pass that can feel a little bit constricting and limited to change, because I don't know, I just feel like something about it might subconsciously make you think like, oh, this is finished. Why would you want to ruin all of this clean work you just did and make something rougher afterwards, even though the idea that is rougher might work better. But what I'm saying is that I feel like sometimes your rougher work might emote something better, it might gesture something better, something that wouldn't have been captured in a clean line or clean work, because it is just so definite, while, you know, a looser line kind of is just still offering some opportunity to change. This is just getting really philosophical and abstract over something that just really doesn't matter, but I mean, I have to fill in this video with some content to talk about. Anyway, what I'm pretty much trying to say is that if you're still struggling to find ways to draw more efficiently or approach your projects more efficiently, and you keep hitting roadblocks or artist's block, try thumbnailing, because I feel like, again, it is something that maybe your art teacher told you to do, but you overlooked it because, you know, it messed with your creativity at that time. But for sure, if you want to, you know, maintain your energy in the long run with art, thumbnailing is something that has worked for me, and I am just kind of promoting that idea for those who just still are not really, you know, embracing that idea. So the thumbnails I'm doing on this layout are ultimately for comics that I will eventually be posting on my Instagram, but also just remember that when you're doing these things, you don't have to make everything perfect or exactly identical to whatever the final product is. This is the place for you to point at things in your drawings and write notes next to them. This is the time to just really do everything for yourself. This is a part of the process that is more for you than it is for your audience. So that's why I feel like I've learned to enjoy this process more, because I'm really spending that time with my own brain to clarify what it is I'm trying to say and what better ways I can represent a story with certain drawings. And yeah, if you want to annotate or make notes about what it is you drew and how much further you want to clarify what you just drew, go ahead and write it. Point at it with arrows. You can go outside of the borders if you need to. Like, that is something that is just really liberating about this stage of drawing. So that's why I think it is good to at least attempt at it if you haven't yet. And you know, if it doesn't work for you, then it doesn't work for you. But either way, I hope this helps someone out there. And yeah, what I'm doing right now is just coloring the final parts with some Copic markers. I don't normally do this when I'm thumbnailing my comics in my other sketchbook, just because I just focus on getting the idea out and moving along. I don't focus on trying to have shading to give the drawings any sort of appeal, but because this is my Draw With Me video, I'll just give it some extra oomph and love and care and just give it that little Copic splash. So yeah, if it's something that you just want to do too, and if that makes you feel better about thumbnailing, again, go for it. But it definitely is not necessary if you are not interested in doing this part. So yeah, that is pretty much the layout for this spread of the sketchbook. Once again, I know it is completely different from all the other pages I did, where I seem to have made more of an aesthetical effort. But once again, this is just honestly the truth of what it's like whenever I'm thumbnailing or planning for art projects, just to make sure they are kept sustainable and I can keep them going for a while and not get burnt out. So yeah, I hope this video encouraged some of y'all who are afraid to thumbnail or afraid to show anyone to thumbnail stuff, or just don't see the worth of thumbnailing, to at least give it a go. I think it is empowering for artists to just see that, you know, having your ideas presented in this raw state can have its own appeal, and not everything you do needs to be perfect. So yeah, thanks for watching this video, and I will see you all in the next one. So stay wholesome, bitches.